Hi, I'm excited that you are joining us today. And today we're going to be learning how to solve linear equations. And this is going to be part one of two videos. So if you are working on the topic in Study Island, solve linear equations, and you're struggling with that, you're going to want to make sure you watch this video and part two so that you get all the information that you need. So in the first part, we're going to be looking at solving equations, so solving for x. And then in the second part, we're looking for solving two variables, so if you have an x and a y, and then word problems and tables. So when you're solving equations, I know when you get these first ones that are kind of small, it's super easy to just want to do it in your head and not show your work. You want to get in the habit of showing your work, because when you get to longer ones, you're going to have to show your work, and that way also it's easy to go back and find your mistakes. So it's a good habit to start now so that you can have that ability to fall back on to when they get harder and longer. And also, if you need more practice with a certain type of word equation that we go over today, you can go to kudasoftware.com/free and click on Algebra 1 on this side, and you can go through one-step equations, two-step equations, multi-step equations, and it gives you a bunch of practice problems, all of the same type, instead of mixing them all together with a key. So that's an excellent way to get some more practice. So I'm excited that you're here today, and don't forget that that it's a really good idea to be taking notes. And if I go too fast, you can pause. And you can always pause at the beginning of an equation. You try to solve for x and see if you and I get the same answer. And that's one way you can check yourself to see how well you're understanding. So I'm excited you're here, and let's look at some examples. In this first example, we're going to be looking at a two-step equation. A two-step equation is where you have an x term added and subtracted by a constant, which is a number, equal to a number. I would practice these over and over again until you get them. Even if math isn't your favorite, solving for x is a large part of your math career from here on out. So getting it down and understanding it will make your life easier. Even if you don't enjoy it, you might as well put in the practice now, and it'll definitely pay off in the future. So when we're doing a two-step equation, we are going to move the number being added or subtracted first. And so equal sign means that both sides are the same. So we have to keep this equation balanced. So whatever we do to the left side, we also have to do to the right side. So I have a subtracted 2, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And when I add 2 to both sides, minus -2 plus 2, that's 0. It cancels out. There's nothing there. And I'm left with a 9x equals, and 34 plus 2 is 36. Then your second step in the two-step equation is going to be to multiply or divide the number by x. Here, the 9x is being multiplied. So to undo multiplication, the opposite of that is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 9. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. 9 divided by 9 is 1, but we don't write 1x because that's implied. So it's just x. And then we have 36 divided by 9 is 4. So we have x equals 4. Now remember, that's a choice here, but we can always check every single one of these solve for x problems. In order to check, I'm going to take this 4 and substitute it back in everywhere there's an x. So it's going to look like this, 9, and then I substitute in my 4 for x, minus 2 equals 34. And if I did it correct, both sides will end up being the same. So if I look at the left side, I have 9 times 4 minus 2. I'm going to do the multiplication first because of order of operations. PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And then I have 36 minus 2 is 34. My right side was also 34, so they do equal out. So my answer is B, 4. So every single one of these problems you do, you can know before anybody checks you whether or not you have it wrong or right. Right, here's an example of another two-step equation. Okay, I have an x term and then a number being added or subtracted equal to a number. So my two steps are always going to be, the first step is going to be to move the addition or subtraction. And since this is subtraction, I'm going to undo that by adding 3 to both sides. When I add 3 to both sides, this cancels out to 0, and I'm just left with 7x equals 25 plus 3 is 28. And then I have this 7 times x to undo that multiplication. My second step is going to be to divide both sides by 7. Those 7's cancel, and I'm just left with a single x equal to 4. And once again, I can check that. So I'm going to have 7 times that x, 4, because I'm going back to this original equation up here and replacing my answer with x, or replacing x with my answer. And then subtract 3 equals 25. So I just copied the rest of the equation down. So then I'm going to look at both sides and see if I can get them both to be the same thing. So here I have 7 times 4. I'm going to do my multiplication first. 7 times 4 is 28, and then I still have the minus 3. 28 minus 3 is 25. My right side is 25 also. So here they do check. 25 equals 25, so my answer is D. Here's another two-step equation. It has the x term being added or subtracted equal to number. And remember, my two steps here, my first step is always to add or subtract the number to both sides. So if I just go ahead, I'm going to draw a line just to show the two sides. And then I have my minus 8. To keep it balanced, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And I do that so that these cancel. And then I'm just left with the x over 5 on the left side, and that's going to equal 15. Now it's a little bit different because every time before we hit this step, it was always a number times x. Now x is part of a fraction. Remember, this fraction bar is also a symbol for division. So if I'm taking x divided by 5, the opposite of dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. And when I multiply both sides by 5, these 5's cancel out to 1. So I'm left with just that single x. And then 15 times 5 is 75. So once again, I can check that answer. I have 75 divided by 5 minus 8 equals 7. So I just took this x here and replaced it with my answer. So I'm going to look at the left side and see if I can get it to be the same as my right side. 75 divided by 5 is 15. Minus 8 is 7, which is the same as my right side. So 7 does equal 7. So my answer does check. So my answer here is D. Now this next equation is a little bit different than the other ones we've looked at. Here we have, instead of this part being equal to a number, it's equal to an x term. So now we have two x terms. So we need to combine those two like terms before we continue solving. Because x's are on opposite sides, and I drew that line just to show you. But the x's are on opposite sides, that they are on opposite sides. When I combine like terms, I'm going to have to do the opposite of one of them. So sometimes it doesn't matter which one you move, but I want to move this term here because if I move this term, it's going to leave nothing on this side. So I'm going to move this x over here to keep it from getting lonely. So remember, because it's going to the other side, I need to do the opposite. So it was a positive 4x, so I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. And this cancels. So then I'm just left with a 48 on this side equals, and then -4 and -4, that combines to a -8x. And you can always use a calculator to check yourself if you get confused on your negative rules. There's no shame in that. Then it's down to a one-step equation because I have a number equal to an x term, and it's perfectly okay that the x term is on the right. However, if that does bother you, you can always just rewrite it as -8x equals 48. You're completely allowed to do that also. All right, so back over here, my original work, I'm going to divide both sides by -8. These -8's cancel out, and I'm left with a single x, which is exciting because that's what I need. And then I'm going to have 48 divided by -8 is -6. And I have my x completely by itself, and that looks like it's answer C. But once again, I can substitute back this answer back into the equation. Remember, anytime I have a x term, I'm going to substitute that in for my answer. So my answer is -6, and then I have the plus 48 equals -4, and then I have another x there, so I'm going to replace that with -6 also. And then I'm just going to work through order of operations. I don't have parentheses or exponents, so I'm going to do multiplication first. 4 times -6 is -24, plus 48 equals -4 times -4 is positive 24. And so now I have the right side here. It's completely simplified, so I want to see if I can get this left side to be the same in my check. So -24 plus 24 is positive 24. So I end up with positive 24 on both sides, so my answer does check, so I know my answer is C. This next equation is a little bit different. It has the two x terms. So because it has two x terms, I want to combine those like terms first. However, it's different than the other problem I did with two x terms because it has both x terms on the same side. Because these x terms are on the same side, they're going to stay the same. So same side, they stay the same. And I'm just going to combine them like you would if you were simplifying. So 8x minus 3x, everything stays the same. It's just going to be 5x when you combine. So then I have 5x equals 5, and it's a single step equation. I have this 5 times x. So to undo that multiplication, to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And when I divide both sides by 5, I'm left with x equals 5 divided by 5 is 1. And once again, I can check that. And I'm just going to substitute my answer back in for x in that original equation. So in my original equation, I had two x's. So I'm going to be substituting twice. So I'm going to do multiplication and division first, right to left. So 8 times 1 is 8, minus 3 times 1 is 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. And that's what my right side is also. They're both the same, so they do check out. So my answer here is going to be A1. Here's another equation that has two x terms. So there's one here and one here. And then I have my constant or number. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down the middle of the equal sign so I can see both sides. My x terms are in opposite sides, so I'm going to have to combine them, but when I combine them, I'm going to have to do the opposite since I'm moving sides. Now, I could move this 11x over to be with the 8x, but because the 11x is the only term over here, when I move it over, we're not going to have anything on this side. So since the 11x is lonely, I'm going to bring the 8x over to join it. And to do that, to keep these equations balanced, since that 8x is switching sides, I'm going to have to do the opposite. It was a positive 8x on the right, so to bring it over to the left, I'm going to have to subtract 8x from both sides, or minus 8x from both sides. The 8x cancels, and I'm out to 0, and I'm just left with 27 on the right, and then 11x minus 8x is 3x. And now it's down to my last step. I have a number times x. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. These cancels out to 1. So I'm left with a single x equal to 27 divided by 3 is 9. And once again, I always want to check my work because it's an easy way to know if I got this problem right or wrong. Why would I want to move on and get it wrong and get it counted against me when I know how to check to make sure I'm right? So anywhere I see an x in this original equation, I'm going to replace that x with a 9. So I'm substituting that x for 9. And that's equal to an 8x, but instead of writing an x, I'm going to write 9. And then plus 27. So I just took this answer of 9 and replaced every x in the original equation with 9. And now I'm just going to work the sides separately to see if they work out to be the same. So on the left here, I have 11 times 9, which is 99. On the right, I have 8 times 9, which is 72 plus 27. 72 plus 27 is 99. So both sides actually equal out to be 99 equals 99. So it does check out, so my answer is A. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something, and don't forget, practice makes perfect with these.